Hey, what is up, nerds, geeks, and collectors alike? Today we're taking a look at the Marvel Legends Walmart exclusive Ultimate Spider-Man 2-pack consisting of Spider-Man and Marvel's The Vulture. These figures are based from the comics The Ultimate Universe, meaning it does not take place in the original continuity of the 616 universe or the main comic book universe. But apart from that, I got this 2-pack from a local toy store. I got it for about $30 in clearance, and $30 is the retail price for a single pack Marvel Legends figure here in the Philippines. And the figures come packaged in the generic Marvel Legends packaging for 2-packs. At the side here we have a image of Vulture. At the back here we have an obligatory product shots of the figures, as well as the comic cover that these figures are based off from. And moving on to the other side, here we have an image of Spider-Man at the side of his box. And taking a look at the top, here we have a small window, and at the bottom here we have the Lego Mumbo Jumbo as well as the UPC. And for the front, just the Marvel Legends logo as well as the Ultimate Spider-Man logo with the names of the figures. And here we have the Marvel Legends Walmart exclusive Spider-Man and the Vulture, and these guys are a real good figure form representation of their comic book counterparts. And this 2-pack was released, I think, the same time with the theatrical release of Spider-Man Homecoming, which had Spider-Man fight the Vulture, and I guess it makes sense to release these two figures in comic book form. Now, this figure is a very excellent representation of the classic Spider-Man costume. I really like that big wide eyes, and as well as the red and blue color scheme or the color palette of Spider-Man. I really like what they did here. I really like what Hasbro chose to do with this figure, and the webbing as well as the overall application of the paint are precise and clean. I really like that, and I like the sculpt or the mold of the figure, because it really makes you feel as if this Spider-Man is actually a teenager. His overall build, height difference, and overall mass of the figure, if you really have this figure at hand, and there's nothing much to say, it's Spider-Man. Especially that this Spider-Man is a comic version. It is very plain and simple, but yet so satisfyingly detailed. That's what I usually say, especially when it comes to comic book figures. They are simply designed, but they are satisfyingly detailed. They are detailed as much as they needed to be. And Spider-Man only includes 2 interchangeable hands, which are open hands, or should we call them the wall crawling hands, or what I like to call them personally, the jazz hands. Now, these are just regular open hands, and they are sculpted pretty well actually. The paint, the overall webbing, actually my overall basis for the paint in this figure are the webbing. I don't really pay much attention to the red and blue, since we all know that Spider-Man comes with that. I really focus on the webbing, since I think personally that may be the defining paint application of the figure and how clean it is. And in order to exchange the interchangeable hands, what you do in typical Marvel Legends fashion is firmly grip the figure and the hand it currently has, and just pull it out right here. There we go. And just push the interchangeable hand you wish to apply into the figure, and there we have Spider-Man and his open hands, or wall crawling hands, or his jazz hands. And do it here as well. There we go. and that's why it's the jazz hands. That's why I call it the jazz hands, especially with this pose. It looks funny, but it really adds a lot of character in terms of displayability and posability. Moving on to the Vulture, here we have his enormously long wingspan, which, let me get my ruler, and where is it? Here it is, and there we have it. And from tip to tip of the wings, it stands about, it's a lot longer than the ruler itself. So what we have to do here is, that's 12 inches there from the other tip. Unfortunately, my camera cannot pick that up, and let's mark where the 12-inch ended and add that again. So this is about 13.5 inches long, the wings from one side to the other. And let's take an in-depth look of the figure itself at Vulture himself. Let's take off the wings, and here we have a very good sculpt of the Adrian Toomes head sculpt. You can actually, kind of looks like Lex Luthor. All you need is a Marvel Legends with the body, the casual civilian suit. I think that's really good. And actually, the overall sculpting and painting, especially at the head sculpt, is actually clean and precise. Here at the body, he has two shades of green. He has that dark aquamarine green, that dirty lake green, if you will, and a tiny bits of silver onto his waist. And let's add this back piece here in order to have a complete look at the backpack without the wings. I really like this version of the Vulture's suit. It's just practical. It makes sense that it be more mechanical than the classic Vulture suit, which looks like it's just made from a pajama of a of a retired senior citizen. And for the accessories, let's take a look at the wings. Here we have a glossy gray plastic with some green painted over it in order for that Vulture color scheme to be incorporated with. And the other wing is actually the same sculpt, and as well it has the same paint, just inverted for the other side. And removing this, in order to install it, both wings have their unique slots. Here we have a straight slot with a tab, and not this one. This one, it has some sort of a tab there sticking out, an extra piece of plastic, in order to know which goes where, which wing goes where. And this one does not have it, and as you can see here, it has a little bit of a slant sculpt. In order to install that, you just slide it in here. There you go. And that goes the same for the back. The other one has that extra tab, while the other one is just the normal one. And there you have it. He also comes with this helmet. It's painted in that two shades of green with the added red eye, as well as some silver on the teeth there. In order to install this in a generic Marvel Legends fashion, all you have to do is firmly grip the figure, pop off the head just that easily. Just wishing that popping on the head is as easy as that. That the neck piece tends to move, especially the ball joint, and there it goes. Just firmly grip the figure and go in. There we have it. I would actually prefer this look since it's more practical, especially that you're flying with your bare head. There's a chance that you're gonna catch insects into your teeth, into your eyes, some dust in your eyes. I think it's more practical that Vulture has a helmet. It actually just makes sense that it has a helmet overall. It's overall practicality. But again, the classic Vulture does not have that. And since he is a supervillain, wouldn't it make sense for him to have a mask more so than the hero? And taking a look at Spider-Man's articulation, he has a ball joint. He can look up that far and look down that far. And his arm can go out, do a 360 with no problem at all. Bicep swivel, and then a double jointed elbow, as well as some wrist rotation or wrist swivel with some bend here. That goes the same for the other hand, the thwipping hand, if you will, that actually bends. And he can crunch, and he can arc that far with a waist swivel here. He can kick and move his feet back that far. He can almost do a perfect split thigh swivel, and then double jointed knees, as well as a boot swivel and a back and forth movement, and a super pivot, which only makes sense since you're gonna be posing this figure a lot. And moving on to the Vulture himself, let's take him here. Let's remove the wings in order for him to be articulated properly. He has a ball joint there, and he can look up that far, especially for those flying poses. And since he can look up that far, he can look down that far. His hand can't go out, can do an entire 360 without the wings. The wings will hinder that if that's there. Some bicep swivel, double jointed elbows, and some wrist swivel, and that's about it. He doesn't bend. He also has this butterfly joint, which you can barely notice and barely use due to the fact that he has that giant collar, and he can barely crunch or arc because of his backpack. He has a waist swivel. He can kick that far, and his feet can go back that far. He can almost do the spreads, and he has some I think this is a frozen joint here. I think this is frozen. I want to break the figure, and it's actually, oh, here. It's actually a little, I think, just gently, there we go. There we go. That's it. The thigh swivel is free. There we have it. And he has the double jointed knee, as well as his feet has that back and forth, as well as a super pivot. And that's about it for the posability of the Vulture. Now let's pop back his wings and put him back beside Spider-Man. And for some size comparison, we're just gonna compare these two figures with the ruler, the trusted ruler. Spider-Man stands about 5.5 inches actually, and Vulture stands about 6 inches and a little above 7 inches with the wings. Again, let's measure this wings. It's about, let's just confirm that 13.5 inches, and actually it's still 13.5 inches. And there you have it, Spider-Man and Vulture. As you can see, as I mentioned earlier, Spider-Man is really small compared to the 6-inch figures, giving you the vibe that he is a teenager. So final thoughts on the figure. The Spider-Man alone is worth it, but I don't know if it's worth it enough for the retail version of the figure, since I got mine for clearance at $13. I personally think that it's worth it. I'm basically buying the set for one Marvel Legends figure, and I'm only really after the Spider-Man figure since I think I'm gonna post him beside my comic versions of Iron Man, Captain America, and Thor. I really like these two, and I did not expect to like the Vulture as much. So if you like this video, drop a like and subscribe for more content. Till next time, see ya.